The Saints didn't win their second preseason game, but they didn't lose it. Ends in a tie. Kind of a thrilling finish. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the quarterback competition and which players help their stock going into week one. All that right here on the Straight Up Saints podcast.
You're listening to the Straight Up Saints podcast.
What is up, Who Dat Nation? Welcome inside another edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast. I'm your host, Chris Rosvogo, and as always, the Straight Up Saints podcast is brought to you by Scott Vicknair Injury Lawyers. Been injured in any kind of accident, car, truck, injured offshore. Scott Vicknair handles it all. Give him a call at 504-500-1111 for a free consultation. They'll always fight for the win. The Saints, they fought pretty hard for a win. They end up with a tie, but a really fun ending to what was, in the first half, a lackluster preseason game, and in the second half, was able to actually walk away with some positive takeaways, and I can't wait to get into all of them. As always, guys, if you have any thoughts about this preseason game, Saints in general, what's gone on this summer, thoughts for week one, anything related to the black and gold, put it in the comment section below. I'll make sure to get to everyone's comments in just a couple of minutes. Going to give my quick thoughts. Also going to give my trending up, trending down, and then we'll get into everything you guys have to say. So let's start off with the quarterbacks, because let's not sugarcoat it. That is the most important thing right now for the New Orleans Saints, is their quarterback competition between Tyler Shough and Spencer Rattler. And today, it's very clear that this was an opportunity for Tyler Shough to go out there. I don't know if I would say win the job, because I still feel like Rattler had the lead if we go through the whole summer coming into today, but a really good opportunity for Shough to either close the gap, tie it up, whatever you may want to say. And I said this during the halftime show, but I don't feel like Tyler Shough did anything today outside of one drive where I'm like, man, really stamped himself as the guy. And that doesn't mean he can't be the guy, but in the moment, right, you didn't walk away from that first half feeling like, okay, he played really well. I'd love to see him start week one. And if you want to see him start week one, it would be more so the thought process that I've had, where it's like the Saints clearly view him as their guy. That's why they drafted him. I'd rather them see him play him for 17 games and figure out if he's any good, because they might have to actually draft a quarterback in, less than a year from now anyway. But didn't see a whole lot of Shough. Didn't look great under pressure. Had one really good drive, ends in just a field goal. Rattler comes in. I thought Rattler looked really clean. I thought he was letting it fly, which I thought was really good, because I thought last week Rattler was a little timid. And that's not something you want to see, especially in the preseason. When you're fighting for a quarterback spot, I want to see you rip it. And I think Rattler ripped it a lot today, and I love to see that. Then the interception happens in the red zone. And I'm a little like, oh, man, well, this freaking stinks, because A, I didn't like the read. I thought it was a predetermined throw. But B, I also thought that Mason Tipton absolutely gave up on that route. So there's a double whammy in terms of frustration. And I thought, well, here we go again. No one really solidified themselves. Not great. And then you got that 2-minute drill. You're down by 8. Rattler goes down the field, ends up throwing a touchdown pass to Dante Pettis, and then runs it in for the game-tying 2-point conversion. And then the game ends on the game-sealing interception from Jonas Sanker, who I'll talk about in just a minute. And that ends, and I go, okay, well, Rattler was clearly the better quarterback today. I don't think it's a question, right? Out of the two quarterbacks today, Rattler was head and shoulders better than Tyler Shough. I don't think you can deny that. I think the concern that I have right now is, through two preseason games, the most comfortable the quarterbacks have looked, the best the quarterbacks have looked, is when it's the backup going up against the second and third string guys in the second half of the game. I thought Shough last week, granted, had a pick six, looked really comfortable after that pick six, was moving the football. I thought, all right, he looks like he's in rhythm. Today, I thought Rattler was excellent outside of one really, really bad throw and bad route from Mason Tipton. I thought that on that play, okay, everything else worked pretty well. But that's my concern. I want to see one of these quarterbacks, and maybe the third preseason game will be the one where whoever starts, you kind of just grab the bull by the horns, take over that starting job, and say, hey, man, I'm stamping myself as the week one guy, and go from there. Again, Rattler was way better than Shough today. I think if you don't feel that way, then I don't know what game you're watching. I think Rattler was clearly better. I'm still waiting for someone to outright win this job, as opposed to just naming a winner. Because right now, it has been the second string, third string defense that we've seen Shough play well against, and that we've seen Rattler play well against. I want to see these guys in that first quarter come out firing and looking sharp in Kellen Moore's offense. So again, Rattler wins today, no question about it. I would still, if I had to guess, I'd still imagine the Saints are going to let these next couple of weeks play out and go from there. But Rattler finished the game on a high note, and I'm definitely happy for him. I thought he looked really sharp down the stretch. Really good response, especially after the pick in the red zone. So that's where I'm at with the quarterbacks. Let's get to let's get to some bad, and we're going to finish with some good, and then I'll go into any comments you guys have. So let's start with the bad. Cesar Ruiz. I don't know where us Saints fans go here with Cesar Ruiz. Look, I don't think he's a good football player. Got banged up today, so that's not great on top of it. But he's struggling in the preseason, and it's blatant struggles. It's the type that shouldn't happen for a guy who is getting paid as much as he is, who's been in the league for as long as he's been. It is really, really annoying. So Cesar Ruiz was in that bad category for me. Had one good tackle today, but outside of that, I thought Isiah Foskey, again, he's not on the team to make tackles. He's on the team to pressure the quarterback. And I think everyone on the defensive line has a better shot of getting pressure than Isiah Foskey at this point. That's kind of where I'm at. I thought he's looked terrible for the majority of this preseason. DeMarco Jackson, didn't think he did anything today. Reason I say that too for DeMarco is not only did I think he struggled, he's at a linebacker position that, look, not a lot of position groups for the Saints do I feel confident about the starters and the depth. Linebacker's one of them. Feel good about DeMario. I feel good about Pete. Also feel pretty good about rookie linebacker Danny Stutzman. And I feel really good about Jaylen Ford. And that brings me to the good. Who's trending up? Jaylen Ford, interception today when you're in a really tight positional battle, as they are at the linebacker. The big plays, the momentum swinging plays, those matter. And getting interception is definitely a plus. So Jaylen Ford, I think he's done a really good job this preseason of keeping himself in there. Mason Tipton, I said he had that shit route that led to the Rattler interception where I thought it was a combination bad read, bad route. But Tipton makes plays, and I do think it matters that he has good chemistry with Spencer Rattler. And even after that interception, what I like is that you saw Rattler go back to him repeatedly on that last drive. So I do think there's some good chemistry there. He had 100 yards receiving today. Also drew a 45-yard PI penalty. So Tipton, to me, is one of those guys that I think, it's August 17th. I think you Sharpie him in on the roster. Forget about pencil. I think you Sharpie him in. Another really nice game for him. So shout out to Mason Tipton. And then last but not least, I think I've raved about this guy so much over the last couple months, and I'll keep doing it. I think Jonas Sanker's a player. I think he's a ball player. And I thought he was excellent in the second half. Great tackles, great recognition. And I think it's fitting that a guy who played so well in the second half ends up ending the game with a clutch interception where it looked like the Saints might be giving up a game-winning field goal to all of a sudden you settle for the tie in the preseason. So shout out to Mason Tipton. Shout out to Jaylen Ford. Shout out to Jonas Sanker. And obviously, as I mentioned before with the quarterbacks, Rattler was by far the better quarterback today. So shout out to Rattler and really nice response. Just like I gave Shuck credit last week, how he responded after the pick six, pick in the red zone for Rattler. How do you respond? 2-minute drive to get in the end zone and then tie it on 2-point conversion. I think that's a pretty damn good response. So shout out to all those guys. I'm sure there's other that I will get to and I missed, and I'm sure you guys will bring in the comment section. So I'll get around to it. Without further ado, though, let's get into stuff that you guys have in the chat here, presented by John Deere. Look, I think that you guys, if I had imagined, are going to talk a lot of quarterback, and I'm excited to see what you guys have to say about it. So let's jump into it. Michael here with a super chat says both quarterbacks are mid. I don't disagree with that, but I think that I just want to see someone win the competition. That's kind of what I mentioned before. But yeah, look, I don't think both options are exactly the ones that are going to entice fans to feel like this franchise is going to turn a corner. But they're also young. We'll see what happens. Got a super chat here from Edwin6146. Thank you so much for the support. Says, we've yet to see Spencer with Olave and Shaheed. We actually have never seen him with both guys at the same time. I think that's an important factor. Look, yeah, I mean, no, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to be an idiot and say it doesn't matter. Shaheed and Olave are their best receivers. It does matter. Like, you want to see him play with them. I think for me, when I'm watching Rattler, there's two things I want to see. I want to see, like today, exactly what he did. I want to see him take more shots downfield. I thought he did a good job of pushing the ball downfield. I thought he was a little bit too safe last week. This week, pushed it downfield. Love that. And pushing the ball downfield for me, yeah, I know if Rattler finished this game with no touchdown and maybe 2 picks, let's say, it's easy to say, oh, he played like shit, bad game for him. I don't care who the receiver is. I want to see him push it downfield. I thought he did that. And if the receiver doesn't end up making the plays, it's an indictment on a bad receiving core for me. So I want to see him push it downfield. He did that. And then I want to see how these quarterbacks handle pressure. Shuck obviously is very, I'd say, fidgety under pressure in terms of it seems like he's just trying to get that ball out like it's a hot potato. And then on the flip side, when I view Rattler, I don't think there's great pocket presence there in terms of feeling the pressure. So one is obviously not excited to be under pressure. And the other, I think, has to feel it better. Those are the things I'm watching. But yeah, for sure, Edwin, I understand people bringing up, not having Olave and Shaheed. I get it. And look, that might be the case next week. He might start the preseason finale, and he might have both of them on the field. So we'll see what happens. Fred says, feels like an angle route to Jones. A touchdown waiting to happen. Got to find a way to get that guy the ball in space. Didn't get a lot of touches today. 4 carries for 29 yards, but he makes the most out of them. And he's got great speed. I actually think he will make the roster personally. I just think there's so much you could do with him. Running back, receiver, special teams. I just think the Saints would value a guy like that to me. So I think that's going to help him. Also, you got to remember there's less competition now. Bub Memes is out of there in terms of competing for a job now with his injury. So I think we'll see how it goes. But I think that Velus Jones definitely has some enticing skills to his game. And that speed is something you can't get away from. Saints 41 says dink and dunk is the safest way to run the offense with their O-line. You might have to. Brother Dot says Rat QB1, Velus Jones lock. Ruiz serves zero purpose. Didn't have to draft a quarterback if you knew you were going to be bad, especially from this year's class. Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be a very, very popular sentiment all year, depending on how the quarterbacks play. If one of these, whoever's the starter, if they play well, obviously that goes away. No one's going to mention next year's quarterback class. But if there's struggles and the offense looks bad, yeah, people are going to continue mentioning. There's no doubt about it. I think QB1 is coach's decision. Both guys had good games versus third-string players. Yep, I agree. I agree with it. Like I said, I am waiting for someone to really, really just take over this positional battle and have it not even be close. And the reason I mentioned the second-string stuff is because I think that matters. I think it does matter that Shuck's best is against the second and third-string guys, and Rattler's best has been against the second and third-string guys. Who-Dat712 says, honestly not sure we saw anything new. Rattler can have great moments, but his ability to maintain over 60 minutes is still in question. Love Sanker, though. Yeah, I think that's definitely fair. I think that's something that we mentioned last year with Rattler. Debut, awesome first half, really bad second half. The game he came in for Jake Haener, he only played that one half against the Commanders, but God, it was a really fun half. Finale, regular season finale, really good first half against the Bucs. Second half, couldn't get anything going. So we've seen that with Rattler. I don't know if it compares to what we saw today in the preseason, but I guess to your point, he only played one half, so yes. But that is a concern, right? Can he sustain it? As for Sanker, look, I will, if I can, I'll conduct the Jonas Sanker hype train, until I'm blue in the face. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited for this player. I think that the Saints safety room, fuck, man. I didn't like that group last year at all, and this is not a knock on the players. I just think they didn't have enough depth, variety, and just talent. And I look at this year's group, and I'm like, I love the Justin Reed signing. I love adding Blackman even at this juncture in the offseason to add a guy like Blackman, who I think is a really good playmaker. And Jonas Sanker, the kid makes plays, and I think he's getting better week to week. Today was his best performance so far. I'm so excited. I like that the Saints have 3 safeties that I feel really good about, Robert says, well, that was fun at least. That it was, for sure. Halfway says, Rattler and Pettis connection is not what I expected to see. Hey, look, he threw a lot of passes his way last year. So, I get why the chemistry's there, Brian says Saints aren't going to win much with both quarterbacks. That's the truth. It's the likelihood for sure. Can't deny that. I think tempering expectations is the best thing possible to do. And even if you temper it even more than what you have for this team. Saints 41, I agree, but I see where it's going to be tough because success came with the backups on depth charts with both quarterbacks. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. But if you had to ask me today, and I'm actually, it's perfect because I see all these comments coming in, so I'm going to get through all of them real quick. If you had to ask who's the favorite right now in terms of who's better, look, I thought Rattler had the lead going into the first preseason game. I thought Shuck played better than Rattler in the first preseason game, but I still think Rattler had a big enough lead that Shuck chipped into it. And then I think Rattler was definitely better today. So Rattler's still in the lead. There's no question about it. Todd saying Rattler's definitely better. Yellow Nose says start Rattler. Sci-Fi X says Rattler's QB1. Jay says Rattler's QB1. So it's, it seems like the Saints fan base is definitely talking about who they believe should be the starter. I still think it's I think they're going to let these guys battle it out for the next couple of weeks. I don't think that, in my opinion, I don't think they made a decision yet. Now, do I think that Rattler is the favorite? Absolutely. But I do think they're going to let the next 3 weeks play out. I just think that's how it's gone. I don't think they're going to change course. They've been very open about their strategy, and they've kind of stuck to their strategy so far. Only the Saints would end the preseason game in a tie. I mean, look, preseason ties have happened before. The nature in which it happened, though, is very Saints-esque. Like, this game, the last 5 minutes was absolutely, this game got drunk out of nowhere. Like, that last drive was insane. You had the pick, defensive stop, the drive in the 2-minute drill, the game-tying 2-point conversion. Seemed like the Jags were going to get a field goal to win it, and then you get the pick. This game just turned bonkers out of nowhere. We're going to be so bad this year. Probably. This is going to be a long season, although I think our defense is going to be a lot better than most think. I also kind of feel that way. During halftime, I remember a couple people were like, man, I don't like how the defense is playing. I'm like, well, they're not playing any starters. No Kool-Aid, no Alante, granted injury. No Justin Reed, no Blackman, no Chase Young, no Brian Brzee, no Godshaw, no Granderson, no DeMario, no Pete. Like, you literally didn't have any of your defensive starters out there. I don't know how good this defense could be. I don't know what the ceiling would be because I still have questions about that defensive line. And I still have questions about the secondary, especially if Alante's injured. Like, that's a key playmaker. But I do think the defense can be better than maybe what I thought they'd be 3-4 months ago. I think this could be a middle-of-the-pack defense. I actually do think there's some talent here, and I do think there's some depth at certain spots. Like, I do think safety, you got 3 safeties that I like. Linebacker depth's pretty good. So we'll see. I don't love the defensive line, though. That's still one of my main concerns right now. Michael says Rattler is not good. Y'all hyping this mid-5th round quarterback up. Look, you guys know how I feel about these two quarterbacks. I'm not married to either one as a starter. I think if the battle's close, I would start Shuck for the purpose of you drafted him, and I think this Saints team's going to be picking top 5. I'd like to know if this guy is for lack of a better term, if he's ass or not. I'd like to know. And Rattler, I think Rattler has his moments. I don't think Rattler's going to be a starting quarterback in this league. That's just, again, my feeling right now. But look, I'm also fair. If Rattler goes out there, and I think he has the lead right now, he goes out there, he starts the 3rd preseason game. He looks great. What's fair is fair. You start in week 1. And you could still at some point go to Shuck. It's probably easier. Not probably, it is. It's easier to start Rattler and go to Shuck than it is to start Shuck and then, like, after a couple games be like, yo, this guy sucks. We got to go to Rattler. I think that's harder because I don't know if Shuck can recover from that. Whereas Rattler, if he starts, he is a 5th rounder. He is with a new coaching staff. If he were to get replaced for Shuck at some point, I think it's easier of a sell for everyone involved. Pablo says Rattler definitely showed grit with that last drive, came back after throwing the interception in the previous drive. Yeah, for sure. It's a good response. That's what you want to see. Walltown Best 88 says Mason Tipton made the team. I would say maybe as the 3rd wide receiver. I still think they're going to put Brandon Cooks over him on the depth chart, and I still think they value Brandon Cooks. But if Brandon Cooks looks at any point, it looks like he's lost a step, a serious step, then I would, in my opinion, I wouldn't be surprised if Tipton kind of climbs up because Tipton's making those plays downfield that you want to see. Everyone said last week that Shuck was QB1. I don't know about saying QB1. I know my chat wasn't saying QB1. I think a lot of people were still saying they prefer Rattler. Me personally, though, I haven't changed my stance. You guys know how I feel. I still think that if the battle is close, I think the Saints at some point are going to go to Shuck because they drafted him. I think that's how it goes. And I'm sure some people are going to say that's not fair. Newsflash, life isn't fair. That's how it works in every industry, right? Like, there is a regime that comes in and picks a guy, and they have a bigger investment in that than the other person. Again, and I'm going to keep saying this, I'm not married to either quarterback because if you had to say, hey, Chris, do you think either one of these guys is going to be the guy for the Saints? I don't think so at all. I really don't. I think you see it sometimes with players. Others develop into it. I don't think either one's going to be it, just personally. Like, if I had to make a way too early prediction. But if the battle stays close, at some point they'll go to Shuck. Right now, the Rattler's clearly in the lead. I think that's the fair thing to say right now. Derek says Spencer the starter, Shuck equals Shuck. Look, first 2 drives, no doubt about it. That was a rough opening for him, especially with the opportunity. Like, you start this game, you're with got Olave and Shaheed out there, obviously, and just not what you want to see. Also, don't want to see Cesar Ruiz get fucking blown up on a play-action play, but I think it's fair to say we don't always get what we want when it comes to Cesar Ruiz. Imagine what Rattler can do with Shaheed and Olave. I'll let you guys answer that. I don't know what he can do with Shaheed and Olave because I don't know what you guys think Rattler's ceiling is, so I'll let the chat speak. But, I definitely think it's easier to throw to Shaheed and Olave than it is Pettis and, Cedric Wilson. And I don't want to say Mason Tipton because Mason Tipton, look, he's going to be minimum wide receiver 4 at this point. So I want to give him his props. But yeah, definitely easier to throw those guys than the others. Rattler's week 1 starter. Shuck ain't ready. He needs to wait. Yeah, I mean, I think that could very well happen. Got a really, really tough 4 games of the season to start, too. So I would not be surprised if maybe that's the route you go. If Rattler keeps playing well, you keep him in. If it's not working and you feel like, hey, we got to go to Shuck at some point, then you could make the move, especially with those first 4 games. I mean, those first 4 games are a gauntlet. Cardinals, Niners, Seahawks, Bills. Not that it gets so much easier, but Giants, Patriots, Bears for the next 3 is a little bit, in my opinion, a little bit softer of a schedule. Jonas Sanker made a few nice plays. The tackle to forced 4th down and the tip drill pick. That tackle was impressive to me. I mean, he's coming in like a missile. Big time play from him. So I think Sanker could be a dude for this team, big time, and he's going to have a great support system around him with Blackman and Reed. So I'm excited about that. To be honest, Rattler definitely has better pocket presence and higher flow. I don't think he has. Look, I don't think either quarterback has good pocket presence. I think Rattler, though, to me, pocket presence and being willing to take a hit are 2 different things. Rattler can stand in the pocket and take a hit. Shuck clearly doesn't want to get hit at all. Okay. But I don't think Rattler feels pressure well. Doesn't mean Shuck feels pressure well. I don't think he feels pressure well either. There was a play today where he got blitzed, didn't even see it at all, and gets smoked. I think both of them, pocket presence-wise, have concerns. If you're talking about who's going to be the tougher SOB and stand in the middle of the pocket and take a hit when he gets thrown, it's Rattler without a doubt. I don't think that's a question. Rattler's definitely better for that. Still feel like both quarterbacks are on even fitting. I still think Rattler has the edge. I go back to my other point. I want to see someone absolutely dominate this quarterback competition to the point where it is a clear winner and you feel great about it. Where now, I think a lot of people there's 2 routes. There's the people who think Rattler's been playing better and want him to start because he has played better, and I think he has. And there's the other that just don't want to see Shuck at all because they made up their mind when the Saints drafted him and not Shedeur Sanders that they don't want to see him play. And that's fine. I think the overwhelming majority are the first that just think Rattler's played better. But I still think what's fair to say is that he has the lead right now. I think that's fair to say. I don't know if I would say even fitting. I still think Shuck should be QB1. You got to at least see what you have because otherwise it would be a waste of a 2nd-round pick. He doesn't need to be QB1 for all 17 games, though. Now, I have said if it is close, let's say the 3rd preseason game happens, Rattler starts and he struggles with the starters and Shuck's okay, then fuck it. I don't really care at this point. I think you want to get an answer about Shuck, but if they play Shuck for 13 games, you should still be able, that's a big sample size. 13 games is still pretty decent, so I don't know if you need all 17 to me. If Saints have accepted rebuilding, then go with Shuck. Tipton's going to be a clutch receiver for the Saints this season. I hope so. He's definitely looked good, though. He's definitely looked pretty good so far. The difficulty here is the Saints have once again made themselves look silly because they draft an older quarterback and he can't confidently beat out Rattler. Yeah, look, yes and no. I understand the frustration. I also think that, to me, I'm not surprised that Rattler has the edge right now. He's got NFL experience under his belt. Shuck does not have. Granted, he's old. And I also think, truthfully, Shuck's had one good season of college football where he's missed a lot of time due to injuries. I'm not surprised there's this ramp-up period for him to get acclimated. So it's different. Now, I'm not saying I want the Saints to burn a 40th overall pick at all. I'm so frustrated with the way the Saints draft in the 2nd round. I mean, we're talking about Isiah Foskey in year 3, and he's a 2nd rounder, and he hasn't done jack shit for this team. So I don't want to see them wasting 2nd round picks. I also don't think, as of today, it feels like I could say, oh, the Saints are silly. End of the year, Shuck looks like crap. Let's have the conversation about how they wasted a pick. I just don't want to go there yet. I don't think I'm ready to go there yet. T Mama says that was a great comeback. Absolutely was. I always say preseason football is boring as hell. That was an awesome last final 5 minutes of the game, for sure. Xavier says, love they didn't even let Jake touch the football. Give that man a rugby ball. All jokes aside, I am glad they didn't go to him in that 2-minute drill. I think it's way more valuable for us Saints fans to see Rattler in that 2-minute drill than go out there and see Haener. Thoughts on Tipton? I've said it before. I'm sure that I probably said it before, so I apologize if I'm answering again. I think Tipton's had a heck of a preseason. Again, I think he ran that route really lazily, kind of sold out your quarterback when you run that route like that on the Rattler pick. But, 100 yards receiving. Last week had the 54-yard touchdown. Also drew a 45-yard PI penalty today. So I think he's had a pretty good preseason for sure. He's going to make the roster. I don't think there's a question about it. The Youngblood 46 says, I think Clyde makes the team over Akers. Yeah, I think so. I don't think Cam's really done much to warrant a spot. I think Clyde's been running hard, and I think Clyde's got a little bit more versatility at this stage in his career. Rattler will be announced as QB1 this week. Maybe. Wouldn't be surprised if they start in week 3 and then go from there. I know Kellen Moore just said today that a decision hasn't been made yet, but that's not surprised. I don't think he was going to come out of the preseason game and make a decision 2 seconds later. But my guess is Rattler starts the preseason finale. I could be wrong, but that's my guess. I get the quarterback pick was needed, but drafting an older rookie comes with expectations, right or wrong, that'll be ready quicker. As you say, both guys played well against guys that won't be on a roster. No, I understand that. Look, guys, if it comes October and the Saints are like, oh yeah, this guy's not ready to play, then there is frustration that sets in, especially because the Saints are probably drafting high anyway. So I get that. But look, if Rattler starts the first couple of games, Rattler looks okay, but they don't love what they see, and they're like, hey, like, we've built this offense, at least what we want around Shuck to start him. Then I'm not making this comment about him not being ready. Like, I don't really care if he's ready late September. To me, I could wait a couple of weeks. If he gets October, he's not ready yet, we can have a different discussion. For sure. I think that's fair to say. Jones a lock to make the team. I think that Velus Jones will make it for sure. I think that's definitely fair to say. Refs were just ready to go home. Definitely 1 second left. I thought that too. It's all right. It is what it is. Regular season game, we'd all be irate because you'd want a chance as opposed to it going to overtime. But for preseason, it's fine. Can't talk. Rattler was starting. He had no Johnson, Olave, Shaheed, McCoy. Rattler should be number 1. It's no question. He doesn't fold when pressure is his face. Tyra's scared when under pressure. I agree on the second part with fold, but I also don't think, and again, I know I'm going to get shit for this. I got shit for this last week, so I'll just voluntarily take shit for this week. I think there is a decent part of the Saints fan base that has made out this idea that Spencer Rattler has played better than what he's actually done. Now, 5th round pick, he's already exceeding the odds, right? I think Rattler, at the minimum, has played well enough in his NFL career so far that he will always have work. And I think that already is an incredible accomplishment. I think, though, that a lot of people have really just romanticized this idea that he is going to be the franchise guy when, like I said before, I don't know if either guy has shown shit yet about being the franchise guy. Now, is he a tougher player than Shuck? I would say yes. I think he stands in the pocket and takes those hits, and I think that's important. I also don't know if his ceiling's as high as people think, though. But that's just me personally. I don't know if I see it. I also do think that he's ready to start week 1, whereas you can have the questions about whether or not Shuck is ready to start. And I think that's fair, Rattler gave Tipton the death stare. Look, I think that's fine. You don't want to quit on your route. I don't think he's getting that ball off. I think if Tipton runs a regular route, I think it just ends up being a pass breakup. The corner closed quick. I don't think that's going to end up being a completion. But obviously an incomplete pass is way different than an interception. So I can understand the frustration there. Tipton's the new Lance Moore. Don't know if I'm ready to go there just yet. But he's impressed me. He's impressed me before. But, I think last summer impressed in training camp, then gets hurt, which stinks. But this summer's been the summer of Mason Tipton before, for sure. And I'm excited to see what he can do. I still think Shuck is the better quarterback for this team. I feel like he manages the game better and won't give the ball away as much as Rattler. I don't know. I can't make that, comment for either quarterback right now. I don't know which one I would say is manages the game better. Obviously Saints last year, it's tough to say with those 6 games that Rattler had. There's a lot going on, different coaching staff. And obviously for Shuck, we haven't seen a lot. Actually, the writers say Rattler has been much better in practice. Rattler has been in the lead since late July, started training camp. I think that's fair to say. Jason says if Rattler doesn't get QB1, I'm going to be pissed because he won that. Look, we'll see. If I do think he's in the lead right now. I don't know if they're ready to name a starter though. I do think, again, guys, what's fair is fair. if we're going to say, hey, Shuck played well against the backups last week, Rattler played well against the backups this week. And again, Rattler was better today, though, than I think Shuck was last week. I think that's fair to say. I think the best preseason performance we've gotten right now from a quarterback is the second half that we got today from Rattler. So if you break it into four halves, that's the best one of football we've seen. And then I would go second half of last week's game with Shuck. Then I'd go probably, I don't even know. I think first half for both Shuck and Rattler were fucking brutal. So, you could take your pick on that. Dealer's choice on that one. I give it to you guys. Olave, Shaheed, Cooks, Tipton, and maybe Pettis are the only wide receivers we got on this roster. The rest do nothing. Even Pettis, I don't even know if I'd go that far. Look, great touchdown today, but, I don't know how far I would go with him. Do you think getting a veteran quarterback in the room would help? I thought that months ago, but the Saints haven't budged. And I will say this, I want to give Kellen Moore his props about this. Whatever his philosophy has been, he has seen it through. He said months ago, hey, Hayner's going to get snaps in camp. And I know people hated it, but Hayner was getting snaps in camp. Now, Hayner's not. Hayner didn't play today. Like, I respect that. You got to make a decision, and Hayner's not part of that decision. I respect it. Said he doesn't need to add a veteran quarterback. They got him. Nussmeier's, knows the position damn well. So I think for me, yeah, like historically we've seen teams add veterans and we feel like that's the helpful way. But, I've looked at years past. So go 2 years ago. I'm pretty sure the Niners, Brock obviously was their starter. I think Sam Darnold was the backup. And yeah, Sam's had experience, but that's not like a legit veteran. It's not like you look at the Browns, you got Shador and Dylan Gabriel, and then you got a Joe Flacco who's won a Super Bowl, who's been in the league for almost 2 decades. Like, that's a little different. And, who out there right now are you going to add that's going to kind of help and be that third voice? And maybe that changes. Maybe the Saints say, you know what, we're going to cut Jake Hayner after this preseason, and then we'll add an older guy. Maybe that changes. But I really want to commend Kellen Moore for kind of sticking to his guns here and going with it. Samuel says, do you see a world where Edwards-Helaire or Akers contribute more than Miller? Also, we look good out of empty today, not just in the 2-minute drill either. Agree on the second point for sure. I will say, yeah, I mean, for one reason, health. If you tell me both guys are healthy, though, Sam, I think I'm going to say that Miller is going to contribute more. But I'm not, even though I like Kendre Miller, I'm not naive about it. The guy can't stay healthy. So, yeah, I can see Clyde Edwards-Helaire at some point contributing. And I want to give him his props. I thought he had a really nice second half. He was one of the guys that I highlighted on my notes when I was going through the game. The team set up Tyler with all the chips for him to win this start, and he was not good. Rattler has been better since camp. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Rattler wasn't bad versus the Chargers. He played okay, got some first downs. I don't agree with that at all, Matt. Personally, I think Rattler was bad against the Chargers. I think that's fair to say. Thought Rattler was bad against the Chargers. I think Shuck was bad today against the Jaguars. I think both are fair to say. Is Mason Tipton now undisputed wide receiver 3? I don't think so. But he's working his way up. He's undisputed wide receiver 4 right now. I think the Saints still value Brandon Cooks right now over him. Maybe that changes over the course of the season, though. I mean, Cooks is getting pretty old. Shuck is terrified under pressure. He looked good last week because the first read was open when blitzed. Zay says y'all was ready to bury Rattler, but now he's QB1 because he scored versus UPS workers. Yeah. You know how the game works, man. It's like the scales are always tilting. That's kind of how it is. And I understand it. I mean, it's a legit quarterback battle. We haven't had this. The last 2 years was like Derek Carr was the unquestioned starter. Before that was Jameis, obviously. So we haven't really seen that play out. Michael says 3 wins no matter who is a starter this season. Rebuilding year, I'm cool with that. I just want to see young players develop. Yeah, I mean, look, I want to see guys like Olave and Shaheed have their best years. I want to see Kendre Miller stay healthy. I want to see Chase Young play well because I think he can. I want to see Kool-Aid take that next step. I want to see a guy like Jonas Sanker play well. I want to see Banks and Fuaga really solidify themselves as one of the core strengths of the Saints is having a young, really talented, potential-packed offensive tackle duo. So, those are things I'm going to look out for. And those are things to me where, and it seems like a cop-out, I'm not going to look at the win-loss this year as much as a determining factor or whether or not I am confident in Kellen Moore and I am confident in whether or not they're building something. If the young talent isn't producing, that's going to concern me. If the Saints aren't getting better as the season goes on, that's going to concern me. They can start out the gate 0-4 on a really tough schedule, look like shit, and then start to play better football, and I'll feel a little bit more confident about this team. I don't know if I want to get into 3 wins is the max. I think the max is a little bit more, maybe 5, maybe 6, but no more than that. I don't feel confident enough, but let's say 5. But, to me, it's the young talent and development. That's what's going to matter. I don't care if the QBs are mid. That was a fun fourth quarter watch. Let's take what dopamine shots this defense gives us. Hey, look, I had fun as hell. I had fun as hell in that fourth quarter for sure. About Shuck, he did drop like a bag of potatoes when he got slightly hit in the mask. Yeah, I couldn't tell if he was trying to sell it for the penalty or like that was his legit reaction. Hope to God he was trying to sell it because it didn't even look like he got hit that hard. He fucking flopped right to the floor. Ruiz is worthless without McCoy telling him what to do. Not wrong. I keep saying it. I think that McCoy is the glue that holds the guard play for the Saints together. And I'll keep, we looked at last year, right? How different did the offense look for the Saints last year once McCoy went out? Rattler has the best chance to get wins this year. Sanker and Stutzman are stars. Don't know if I'll give them the stars label yet, but man, I'm excited about these players. And I think to me, this Saints draft class, you're already seeing some guys play well. Like Kelvin Banks looks legit already. Stutzman's made some plays. Jonas Sanker obviously had a really nice day today. Quincy Riley's made plays in camp. We're still waiting for him to do it in the preseason, but he's made a lot of plays in camp. Fadil Diggs had a sack last week, played well. You're seeing production out of this rookie class already, which is what you like to see. Flip side to guys like Foskey, who I know I keep, bagging on here and I feel bad, but, they haven't done anything so far for this team. Rattler QB1, he's going to keep getting better. We've come too far. Jose says these QBs will be alternating starts this season. I'm calling it out. Absolutely not. There's no way. I think that'd be the funniest thing in the world, but there's no way they're doing that. Game ended just like the Saints QB competition. A tie. Rattler looks much more comfortable right now and navigates the pocket better. How long will it last? I don't know. I would say he's in the lead right now. I don't know if I'd say I think it's kind of unfair to say it's a tie. I think Rattler, I don't care what percentage you want to give it. I do think he has the lead right now. That's what I would say. Rattler in the lead based on what, man? I mean, here's how I look at it, right? Rattler was in the lead going into the preseason opener. That's why he got the first start. That's why he's had more QB1 reps in camp. And yes, I thought Chuck was better in the first game. Thought Rattler was significantly better today. So if those two kind of erase themselves, it goes back to what was the lead and the advantage going into that first preseason game, which I had Rattler in the lead. Thought he was more efficient in practice. Like I said, more first team reps. I think that stuff clearly is a determining factor of where the Saints had this scale ranked. So yeah, I still think he's in the driver's seat at the moment. Max's problem is last week Rattler went against their 1s and 2s, didn't move the ball much, couldn't finish. Then Shuck took over against 2s and 3s, did decent. Same thing happened, but Shuck didn't move the ball. 66 yards in the first half against the 1s, 2s, and 3s. And a lot of it, I think, is on that one catch from Welch. Let me get the stats here. All right, so Shuck completed 9 passes for 66 yards. Most of them, I think, came on that one play to Welch. I don't know what the yardage was. I can't find the yardage here, but about half of it came on there. He is 26. How much time does he need? The age does not equal, though, what's been put in on the football field. He's missed a lot of time due to injuries. And I don't care who you are. There's adjustment for the NFL. Now, coaching does play a factor, obviously, in everything. But, I look at last year, and I thought Caleb Williams was going to come in the NFL. And Caleb had a fine. I think Caleb's rookie year gets a little overblown as like a, not that great. But I thought he played really well at times. But I thought Caleb was going to come in and have the answers immediately. Like, the NFL is not easy. Now, obviously, Shuck is way less of a prospect. I mean, so much lesser of a prospect than Caleb Williams. But there's adjustment for everyone. It's not easy to come in immediately and thrive. I mean, all right, look at the quarterback across today. Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence comes out of Clemson. We all thought he's like the next coming of Peyton Manning. And I would argue we're still waiting for him to be that guy that we thought he could be. So, I think it's okay to say, even though he's 26, it doesn't equal, he was in college for 7 years, but he's not starting all those 7 years. How much time is spent recovering? How much time is spent, watching from the sidelines? So that to me is why it doesn't equal the same thing. But don't get me wrong. It's the reason why you want to see him play at some point, though. It's not a 22-year-old that you're taking. It is a 26-year-old. You want to see them play at some point. No doubt about it. But, 42 career college games in 7 years of college. I got to do the math there, but that's about 6 starts a season. That's not exactly a lot of football, Sanker, Stutzman, Riley are by far the best defensive rookie core they've drafted since 2017, even without a regular season game. I don't know. Peyton Turner fucks the whole thing up because I think if I'm not mistaken, Peyton Turner was the same draft class as Pete Werner and Paulson Adebo. I'd have to double check. And Adebo obviously became a really good player, and I think Pete Werner is a solid player, Shuck is Kellen's pick. He inherited Rattler. If it's close, he's going to go with Shuck, most likely. I think, again, that's what I'm speculating if it's close. Rattler is in the lead. He has a chance to pull. And if you can do that, I think he'll be the starter week 1 against the Cardinals. Even last year, Rattler didn't have the receivers, line, or tight end. We have not seen Rattler with the ones. All right, they have not gotten better at tight end, though. Like, I could argue they might be worse right now. No Foster Moreau, no Taysom Hill. So the tight end one is can't agree there, because it's the same crappy room. Wide receivers, yes, right? Olave and Shaheed missed a lot of time last year. Rattler didn't really get to play with them. So that does matter, for sure. I'll give you that one. And O-line, yes, could be better. Also, is really, really hinging on Eric McCoy's health. So I'll split the difference with you on that one. Because receivers, definitely having better receivers would make all the difference for sure. Kellen is playing a watered-down game to not give anything away for the season. I mean, yeah, he should not be throwing out your best plays from now. I think that'd be a little ridiculous. So, gotta kind of have to go vanilla with everything for the moment. If Cam Jordan's still at defensive end week 1, we're done on the line. I mean, he's going to be. I don't think he's not going to start, but he's going to play on the defensive line at some point. It'll probably be a rotation piece. Hate that argument. Nobody is owed anything, especially Shuck. It to me, guys, it's just we're not being honest with ourselves if that's how we think it's going to go, though. Like, yeah, you want to say nobody's owed anything? Sure. But, we know how the NFL works, right? People have their guys, and that's just kind of how it rolls. Whether or not it's fair, I'm not going to get into that because, like I said before, every kind of workplace has a similar thing where people get preferential treatment. But if this quarterback battle is close, or if Rattler gets the start and at some point struggles, they will go to Shuck at some point because they are pot committed. I do think that is just part of the equation. And I don't think that's anything we could ignore, And just to be clear, guys, if the shoe was on the other foot, if Kellen Moore drafted Rattler, I'd be saying the same thing for Rattler's, advantage. I think that matters, Cam Jordan not starting, though? Yeah, no, he's not. Definitely not starting. Feel like the defense is missing that alpha dog. I think Sanker and Stutzman can be it, but if we can find the guy on the D-line, that would be huge. I really don't think Chase and Carl Granderson are 10-sack guys. I don't, but I also don't think that, I don't think that Chase Young, maybe he's not a 10-sack guy, but I think Chase Young can get close to that vicinity. And again, maybe this is me putting too much stock into the way he played at the end of last season, but he's at a great camp. I still think that player's in there. I don't know what the ceiling is. I don't want to put a number on the amount of sacks, but I think Chase Young will be better this year than he was last year. I know that's not saying a ton if you just look at the sack number, but pressures and QB hits were career highs for him last year. I think he's like a split second away from kind of finishing those plays and making a huge impact. So hopefully he could get there. If you think about it, Tipton is Timu, Olave, and Cooks is old Shaheed. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I'll go there yet for Tipton. Cooks and Shaheed, prime Cooks was awesome for sure. So I want to give him his credit. He was a really good player. Right. Rattler's right now better than Shuck, so he doesn't need time. Definitely better right now. If anyone here thinks either of these is the man, it's going to be the longest season we've experienced in quite a while. That's kind of where I'm at. And it's not me to be pessimistic. I've said it before, the Saints can go 4-13, 3-14, whatever the hell you guys want to pick as the record. And I can still find a way to have some positive takeaways depending on how the season plays out. I'm really not going to. Does Kellen Moore have control of the locker room? Does he look like his system can work? Does he look like he is able to keep this team competitive and in games? Stuff like that matters, and we'll go from there. Chase will be a hound. He played 3-4 his entire college career. That's the best for him. Doesn't have to worry about overcoming a neck injury this year. Had to do that last year. All of last offseason came in a little bit lighter, feeling pretty good. Has been great at practice. And by the way, he's going up against, not going up against slouches. Like Kelvin Banks has been good in practice for the Saints too. Obviously, Follw on the other side is already a really good player. And I don't know. Maybe I'm being a moron for saying this. I think Chase Young's going to be really good this year. I don't know what the numbers would be. I don't have the number predictions off the top of my head, but I think he's going to play well. What wide receiver would you say are the favorites to make the 53? I mean, Tipton's definitely making the 53. I think Velus Jones is going to make it just because of the versatility. I wouldn't be surprised if Pettis makes it too, but I don't know. I think Pettis and Cedric Wilson probably battling it out a little bit. I think Cedric Wilson maybe Cedric Wilson has the edge though. I think Cedric Wilson, just body-wise, bigger wide receiver. I think the Saints might value him more. I think Tipton's the only guy that's like stamped himself though. I think it's a no-brainer. He's making the week 1 roster for sure. Let's keep it rolling here. Let's see. The Nola Chop podcast says Rattler put on a strong performance. He might have locked up that QB1 spot. Shuck had a rough start. He still plays decent, but as of now, Rattler's got the edge. I agree. Running backs, a.k.a. Miller, Clyde, and I'm keeping Villas because he's good on special teams and his change of pace is nasty. Homie fast as fuck. Yeah, I agree. I would keep him. His speed he's got legit, there's obviously all these athletes are fucking fast. That's not the question. But like when you watch them, there's a different level to their game. It just seems like they're moving at a way higher speed than everyone else. And Velus Jones happens to fall in that category. So they can find somewhere to put this guy and find a way to, get even if it's a small package of plays in for him, I think he could do something, See what else. Donald says 2-15 incoming. We'll see. Vibe with Ant says bad draft pick. Let's be honest. Again, I'm not going there. I promise, if the season finishes and we don't get shit from Tyler Shuck, I'll be here. I'll be here to talk about it. But in the moment, I can't say he's a bad draft pick yet. I can't go there. For example, Foskey, my usual default guy to shit on over here, he's been bad for 3 years. It's easy to say he's a bad pick. But I can't go there yet with Shuck. Now, do I think he's going to end up being a good one? No, absolutely not. I don't. At what point will Kellen say, get me a helmet and hold my beer? I would love to see that. I mean, obviously that's not going to happen, but I'd love to see that. Lando says, grade on Sanker today. I don't know what the grade would be, but A-, let's say, if we're going to give one out. I haven't really thought about that grade-wise. I just thought he popped. I thought, play recognition was great. Tackling was great. You make that game-sealing interception pretty awesome. I just think he today was the moment, right? Like, and I said this about him going into the opener. I was like, I don't think Justin Reed's going to see the field a lot right now. I don't think Blackman's going to see the field a lot either because he's the unquestioned starter opposite of Reed. This is a great chance for Sanker to get a lot of reps. And I think this is awesome because Sanker was, I don't want to say started slow, but it wasn't really till training camp started that Sanker really started making a name for himself in terms of, day after day, you're getting really impressed with him. And now he's got great opportunity here to keep doing this. And he'll have another opportunity next week. So, I don't know what the grade would be. If let's say I had to give one, you twist my arm, I'll go A-. Maybe that's a little too high, but I thought he was great, Marley says a franchise quarterback is not on this roster. I mean, most likely not. There's not a lot of franchise quarterbacks out there right now. So, I think that, to me, I'm not worried about that right now. Can they find a guy who is the legit starter? That's my question. I don't even think there's, like, if I had I could probably count on 2 hands the amount of franchise quarterbacks in this league, to be quite honest. Like, there's not a ton. But can you find a guy who could be a legit starter right now? See what else we have here. I see a lot of Rattler Shuck debates going on. Why is Cam Akers not getting any touches? I don't know. That, to me, that might be a thing behind closed doors where they just don't see it. Or maybe they want to see others get involved. Kendre, obviously, there was a big emphasis in the first half to get in the ball. Thought he looked pretty good. Velus Jones, it just looks different, man. Like, Velus Jones he's a fast dude. And even Clyde. I mean, Clyde I thought had a nice game, but Clyde got the ball 4 times. Cam got it twice, so it's not like there's a huge difference. But I did hear beginning of training camp, Cam wasn't showing a lot of burst. Wonder if that plays a factor in why we haven't really seen him have a huge role in preseason, you know? Well, that's an interesting one. Todd says Olave is the most overrated wide receiver. I don't know about that. I mean, where are we rating him? I think that would be the question. And actually, if you guys could put it in the chat, I think this would actually let me help out because I think this is an interesting conversation that Todd brings up. Where would you guys rate Olave amongst wide receivers? I think that would help me get to an understanding of whether or not he's overrated or not. You know, like if someone said top 15, then yeah, probably overrated. But like if you're telling me he's like a top 25 receiver, can't see how he's overrated. Like I think that's, he's had 1,000 yards with shitty quarterback play. And last year, obviously, didn't get to that number because the man missed half the season with injury. So I don't know. I'm not ready to make that strong of a statement about him. But I'm curious to know what you guys think. So let me know in the comment section below. I'm very, very curious to see. Cash8740 says, I say we draft a receiver with a top 5 or 10 pick and trade back to get a pass rusher, and with the rest of the picks, draft all guards. If they have a quarterback, sure. If not, they're going to have to dig into the quarterback. Greg says, so people want the Saints to tank, hoping Arch says he's coming out. I don't think people are going to have to hope for them to tank. I think they're probably going to pick like top 5, top 7, just because of necessity and just struggles. But I can't in good faith willingly want them to tank. If they end up picking 1 overall, whatever the hell it is, because they're bad, so be it. I cannot watch Saints football games hoping they lose and that they're a train wreck. It changes sometimes, though. Truthfully, there was a point last year where I'm like, all right, the Saints played the Panthers on the road, and I was like, man, if they lose this game, I think Dennis Allen gets fired, and that might be the best thing for the organization right now. In hindsight, I think he was dead in the water anyway because they weren't going to make the playoffs, and they were going to suck last year, so maybe they didn't need it. But outside of that, I really never get into a game where I'm like, man, I hope the Saints lose. I don't want to do it. I see so many teams that I forget about tanking, but are always picking top 5, and they're still picking top 5. And it doesn't always save you, But don't get me wrong. They can use some top 5 caliber prospects on their roster. They need some help. Can't believe I'm typing this. I miss Andrews Pete. Lord, forgive me. No, I get it, man. That's how bad Cesar Ruiz is at times. The Saints are so good at bringing everyone back in the last minute after having us turn the game off in the first half. It's definitely one of their specialties. I mean, I don't turn the game off, but they definitely draw me back in no matter what. It's like an addiction when it comes to this team. Also, Olave dropped a ball that would have got a first. Yeah, I mean, it was a bad one. And it's tough because that was the one good drive that Shuck had out of 4. And you would love to see that drive really finish with a touchdown. But, it's a tough one. And it's a shame because a couple of plays before, Olave had a really nasty play, kind of like dug his foot in the turf and was able to avoid the tackle, and it was pretty nifty. So tough to see that happen, but you just hope it doesn't happen in the regular season. We had 0 sacks. I know we played pretty vanilla during preseason, but that was worrisome. Today it was. And it's tough to say what the major problem is for today. It felt like everyone was getting stonewalled. Last week, Christian Boyd had a sack. Fidel Diggs had a sack. Chris Rumpf had a sack. You definitely saw more. Today, good God, it looked like they were all running in quicksand going after the quarterback. That's just how it felt. Shuck threw a pass to Cesar Ruiz. Bro is not a finished product. Yeah, I mean, anytime you throw a pass to your right guard, that's not what you want. That is not what you want. I can tell you that much. Are the Cardinals nice because I see us smoking them? Well, I don't know about that. I think I don't want to say the Cardinals are going to be nice. I do think the Cardinals have a lot of talent on their roster, though. I am so fascinated to see where they're at because I think this is year 3 now under Jonathan Gannon, if my memory serves me correctly. And I think this will be a tough game, man. I think everyone in the NFC West is really competitive. So I don't see the Saints. The Saints are more likely to get smoked than to smoke the Cardinals. But I don't think either team's going to get smoked. I could see week 1 it keeping it close. And, also depends who starts, though. I think if Rattler starts, there's a better chance you keep it close, especially because we've seen him start games. And even if, let's say, he has one good half and one bad half, similar to what we saw last year, you can manage the game to keeping it close. Where if Shuck starts and let's say Shuck is just not ready, it could get pretty scary. And the Cardinals definitely have enough guys in that front 7 to make some noise. So that's kind of where I'm at. The higher ups don't like Rattler. That's why they drafted Shuck at 40. I mean, yeah, I think that's kind of fair to say. I think anytime you draft a quarterback, it's because you don't really like what you have on the roster. It's usually, to me, that's how it goes. Bayou Boy says, I think it's going to be a roller coaster season going back and forth with quarterbacks. I don't know how many times they could do it, though. Like I said, I think you could start with Rattler and go to Shuck. I don't know if you can go Rattler, Shuck, Rattler. You know? You can go Shuck, and if he stinks, then put Rattler in, and that's it. I don't know if you go back to Shuck. I don't think you could go Rattler starts, then go to Shuck. If Shuck struggles, then go back to Rattler. I think once you commit to Shuck, if you were to replace Rattler, then you just commit full through. Whereas if you start Shuck and 7 weeks go by and this guy's a train wreck, then yeah, I mean, the coaches have to show that they can do their job. And part of doing their job is making the decision that's best for the team. And then that would be to bench him. So I don't know how many times they'd be able to waffle back and forth. Do you think Devin Neal clears waivers if he doesn't make the 53? It's a great question. I wish I could answer. I genuinely don't know. I mean, he hasn't played, so I still think someone. I still think someone could take him. It all comes back to what people's draft grades were, right? Because if someone had a decent draft grade on him, you might need a running back. He hits the market. He hasn't played in the preseason, but you're like, hey, remember 4 or 5 months ago, we had a nice evaluation on this guy, and he's up for grabs. So you might just go back to the well and take him. So it's a risk. It's a risk for sure. Is it one that I'd lose sleep over? No, but it's up there. Yes, Shuck was a bad draft pick only because of where he was selected. He would have been there in the 5th round. He would not have been there in the 5th round. I don't even want to defend Tyler Shuck because I want to go back to what I said at the beginning of the show. I am not married to either quarterback. I don't think either one's going to end up being the guy. I hope one of them becomes the guy. I genuinely do. I am not married to either quarterback. Shuck was not going to be there in the 5th round. He was not. And if you think that, I really think that's just laughable. Whether or not you think Shuck is good does not correlate to whether or not he was going to be there in the 5th round, because he wasn't going to be there in the 5th round. Teams like Cleveland liked him. Teams like Seattle liked him. And those teams ended up taking quarterbacks in the 3rd round. So do I think that Shuck would have been there in the 3rd round? Maybe. But do I think that Seattle may have taken Shuck instead of Jalen Milroe? Possibly. Do I think that Cleveland would have taken Shuck instead of Dylan Gabriel? Hell yeah. So no, I don't think he would have made the 5th round. I think we kind of have to put that to rest. You could say you don't like him, but I think we got to put the 5th round stuff to bed. That was not happening under any circumstance. Where does Trey Hendrickson end up? Great question. I think it's ridiculous that Cincinnati's now listening to offers. I don't know who ends up getting him though. I think it's quite the risk to go after. Not risk, but it's going to be expensive. I do not know, man. I don't know. I think the Lions would be a cool spot personally, but I don't know if they want to kind of commit some future assets to go even further all in now. But the idea of Hendrickson and Aiden Hutchinson is pretty cool. But the problem is you're going to have to pay Aiden Hutchinson a shit ton at some point. And if you were to trade for Trey Hendrickson, you're going to have to pay him a lot anyway. That's the whole reason why he wants out. So I don't know. I don't know if there's really a tough spot right now for him. It's a great question, though, and I really do like that one. I'd love to see them just work it out and he stays in Cincy, but who knows, man. Yo, I was at the game. That dude Ruiz has got to go. I'm sorry, bro. Got beat by 2nd and 3rd stringers. Don't apologize. I mean, the guy was bad. The guy was bad today. Do not apologize. Thoughts on Simpkins' 2nd game? He did have that costly hold on a really big Kendrick run. I'll have to go back and look. I do think the interior struggled today. Would not be surprised if it was a communication thing. You do have him up front. We'll see. He was really good week 1, though. And I actually think he's going to make the roster anyway because the Saints don't have the luxury of playing Will Clapp as the backup, as the primary backup now with him out for the year. So I still think he'll make the roster, but I'm going to have to go back and look for sure. I know that costly hold is something that you maybe kind of put down. You note it down. But, he was great week 1. So I don't know if even if he struggled, then I'll have to go back and check the tape. But I still think he's in a good position. I'll really never forgive Ruiz for ending Breeze's career. I kind of fucking forget about that. He's the one who got his ribs absolutely blasted. Ruiz versus Foskey, 1v1. They would probably figure out a way to make each other look like all pros. I really want to see that, actually. I kind of still think Ruiz would win that, sadly. I think Ruiz would sadly win that battle. David says his team is boring. Agreed. Fred says, if it doesn't work out with Rattler and Shuck, then you always run Hainer out there with a freaking rugby ball. What the fuck was that, man? What the hell is that? Like, I'm sitting there watching, all of a sudden they just pan over to Jake Haener, and he's sitting there chucking a fucking rugby ball. It's so stupid, you know? So stupid. Side note, Mason Tipton says the interception that Rattler threw shouldn't have happened, said he was supposed to run through the route, said it was his fault. Respect. Good teammate right there. And he definitely made up for it. I thought he had a really nice game. So shout out Mason Tipton real quick. Fans forget how many teams passed on Rattler taken in the 5th. Yes, what is this in relation to? I'm just curious. Only reason I'm asking, yes, he was, but A-Camp says, bro, Shedeur was there in the 5th, and he's better than Shuck. He would have been there in the 5th. The only reason Shuck started shooting up draft boards because we were interested in him. I couldn't disagree more, man. Shedeur clearly, and I like Shedeur, there was clearly I don't want to say message sent, but it felt that way, where it's like, man, we're just not taking him. We're taking him off the board. We don't want to deal with the extracurriculars. Shuck was not a better prospect than Shedeur. For me, I thought Shedeur was a better prospect. I will say that every day of the fucking week. I still feel that way. I thought Shedeur was a better college quarterback. I don't think it was close. But Shuck was not only receiving interest from the Saints. You can go back and look. The Cleveland Browns very much like Tyler Shuck. And again, I don't give a fuck what the Cleveland Browns do, but the Browns took Dylan Gabriel, who's not better than Tyler Shuck, in the 3rd round. They would have just taken Shuck if that was the case in that 3rd spot. So that's where I'm going about. He wouldn't have made it to the 5th round. It's a stupid argument anyway. I don't know why I'm even giving it a lot of attention, because the Saints took Shuck where they took him, but he was not making it to the 5th round. Bright spot, we're set at linebacker for the foreseeable future. Stutzman is legit. Jaylen Ford is legit. We'll see if they could be that guy, but like the depth is great right now, man. The depth is fantastic. Jaylen Ford's making plays. Stutzman's making plays. Stallbird's making plays on special teams. Nephi Sewell's made some plays in training camp. The Saints linebacker depth has been like one of the very, very nice bright spots to this summer. Ruiz was our best offensive line outside of McCoy last year. So what the crap happened? Bro is terrible now. I would still go Follw over Ruiz, but it seems like he's getting worse, which I just can't really I can't fathom. I don't know how the fuck that happens. Like, I don't get it. They could get out of his contract next year, though, so I strongly suggest they do that. Sylvester says Saints 3-win season ahead. May says, are you concerned about defensive depth? At certain spots, for sure. Linebacker, I like the depth. They got 3 safeties that I like. Not feeling good about defensive tackle. Not feeling good about defensive end. Not feeling good about cornerback. So overall, yeah, I guess that would mean I'm concerned. I do think they have some bright spots, though, when it comes to the depth. No matter how bad the Saints are this year, at least we don't have Dennis Allen anymore. Amen. Amen, Braden. Should we try Simpkins at guard? They might at some point. I mean, they might have to. Right now he's just filling in because Eric McCoy hasn't played in the preseason, and obviously Eric's going to be the guy. But I think it's also important to figure out if he could be your center, because if Eric does miss time, you don't have Will Clapp anymore. So we'll kind of see. It'd probably be easier to kick him at guard, though, and have that like anchor of Eric McCoy and either Banks or Eric McCoy and Fuaga kind of sandwiched him, kind of sandwiched around him. But, right now you got to play him at center. You got to figure out whether or not you have your backup center if Eric McCoy were to miss time. Dennis Allen's going to go in drive versus offensive line for 3.5 quarters. Only give up a big play at the end to lose the game. Saints 21, Bears 17. That'll be a fun one later this year. How would the fan base have felt if a player of need would have been drafted with the 2nd round pick other than Shuck or Sanders? Would we be behind Rattler's QB1 if Kellen had decided that? I mean, you'd have no choice, right? I think that would have been a decision, just like it was a decision to go for Shuck. So, I get why they made the pick that they made. Whether or not it's right or wrong, time will tell. I think if I had to bet, I would say no. He probably won't end up being the guy. But I get why they made the pick. They weren't pleased with the quarterback room. They wanted to bring someone in that was a pick from Kellen Moore. And that's what they ended up doing. Now, would I have preferred that route with Rattler? Truthfully, yeah, for the one reason of I would have liked the idea if it either works or you're picking your quarterback next year. I don't love the idea of, you do this and it still might not work and you might have to pick a quarterback again next year. Taysom at right guard. Fuck it, man. Let's do it. Randy says, what a way to come through by Rattler. He did this against Washington last year. Just wish Jawan would have came down with it. That was one. I would say that was his best half outside of his first half against the Bucs in his debut, because that was a pretty good one. The Saints have a chance to do the craziest thing. I think Shuck has more than what he is showing, but it's time to give Rat his chance. Jeremiah Smith, 2027. Let's get to 2026 first, man. But I love Jeremiah. Jeremiah's a dog. Shuck isn't that guy. He's basically equal to Rattler. Again, I look, guys, I've been saying it throughout this. I don't think any of them will end up being it, but who knows? Imagine if we took Will Johnson instead of Shuck at 40. Ugh. I mean, yeah, I loved Will Johnson during the pre-draft process, but that medical did scare people. The guy did fall to 47. I think this was a player who was like a top 20 prospect, no-brainer. Are you going to release a 53-man roster projection prior to preseason week 3? Maybe I should. Maybe I'll put one online. If that's the case, I'll put it on Twitter. Everyone can see it. Nowhere to hide it. So, maybe I will do that. That's a good suggestion. I appreciate that. So maybe we'll do that this week. Just got to make sure I check my math and don't mess it up. Pablo says, honestly, Rattler was dealt a bad hand last year, given the turmoil of the season and the mutiny going on in the locker room. If he starts all games this season, does well / bad, then that's the end. Sure. I don't disagree with that, Pablo. But again, that's not the route that they chose. So, we're kind of in the situation the Saints have picked. So we just got to see how this goes. We got one more week of preseason game left. I think that, right now, Rattler has to be in the lead, through the first 2 weeks of the preseason. Jack says, I don't see how the Bucs don't win the NFC South this year. No lie. That's fair. I'm still not right. Every year, it's like we're trying to get convinced about Atlanta, and I'm not there yet. What is the worst case scenario for the Saints this year? Like worst case record or worst case scenario for like future purposes? Because like worst case scenario, I could go here and tell you they go 2-15, but if they go 2-15, they're probably picking first. So it might be a worse, one of the worst seasons to watch, but then in the long run, it actually might be a good thing for this team. Fred says if our O-line is cheeks, then maybe going with whatever quarterback has better mobility is the way to go. Rattler looked good with the legs today. Yeah, I think he looked better with his legs today. Shuck is a better athlete, though, if you just go through the measurables. I wish he ran more, man. A 4.64 for that, size is it's pretty good speed, but he doesn't use it as much as you'd like to see him do it. Yeah, Bucs got it on lock. Falcons defense sucks. Fred says worst case scenario is figuring out how to win 7 games and pick outside the top 10. See, yeah, that's where I was going with Fred. So, like, worst case scenario if we're going that route is that. Like, the Saints are mid, not getting a top-tier prospect, also not knowing if they have their quarterback. Like, that, to me, is the worst-case scenario. I would rather they know they don't have their guy or know that one of their quarterbacks is their guy. That would be best-case scenario. Worst-case scenario is you're kind of stuck in neutral. Who are your standouts today? I mentioned them before, Mason Tipton, Jaylen Ford, Jonas Sanker. Those are the 3 that I mentioned. Want to give credit to Rattler, though. I thought Rattler was really good in the second half, but I wanted to go with those 3 guys because I wanted to spotlight guys that aren't in the quarterback competition because that obviously has been the main takeaway. Thoughts on the Trey Hendrickson situation? Typical Bengals. Look, it's a tough thing. For me, I think where the Bengals messed up was paying T. Higgins, and I really like T. Higgins. But if I'm paying Jamar Chase all this money, I don't want to be paying all that money to T. Higgins. And they decided to go that route. So they kind of put themselves in that spot. Ugo Amadi's been playing like he wants to be on the roster. Utilizing him as a blitzer has been interesting. Look, I like Ugo. I think Ugo has really done a good job with the opportunities he's had. And this dates back to last year, too. It's not just this year. If one of these quarterbacks throws for a 4K, 25 touchdowns, but we still only get 3 to 5 wins, do you still draft a quarterback? How does it look, though? Are they garbage time stats? Are they, are the Saints competitive? To me, that kind of matters. The reason I say that is, let me pull up his numbers. All right, this guy had a shit ton of picks, but Sam Howell had 21 touchdowns and just under 4,000 yards in the season, and he clearly wasn't the guy. Do you think the Saints make a big trade before during the season? If so, what player position? I don't, to be honest. I don't think they make a big trade. If they do, though, I don't know what the fuck. They need a lot right now. They use a receiver, use a tight end. They got a couple of needs here. So I don't think they make a trade, though. Ugo's a good depth piece, but you're in trouble if you're relying on him. Yep. I think that's fair. Early prediction for week 1 versus the Cardinals. Kyler hasn't looked great either. I still think the Cardinals will win that game, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. Let's also see who starts, though. If Rattler starts, I think there's a better chance the game is close just because we don't know what Chuck would do in his first game where, we've seen 6 starts from Rattler, if that makes sense. So that's kind of where I'm at. But anyway, guys, second week of the preseason in the books for the Saints. Thought Rattler was the better quarterback today. Had some standouts. Jaylen Ford, Jonas Sanker, Mason Tipton, whole lot more. You guys have been great so far. Going to get to the last couple comments, and then we're going to wrap this up. Would you rather the Saints have a top 5 defense and and have an 8 to 9 win season with meaningful contributions from the rookies, or get the number 1 overall pick? Depend if for me, if the quarterback situation is a nightmare and there's just winning games from defense, then I'd rather have the number 1 pick. But I don't know. Like, if you're winning 8 to 9 games, you're probably getting decent quarterback play, even if the defense is what's kind of carrying you, So I don't know. I know I kind of gave you a bullshit answer, and I apologize for that because it's a very good question. But I would take the route where the Saints either they get the number 1 pick, which is what I would prefer in that situation. If I had to pick, I would pick that. But what I want is for them to know they have a quarterback. So if you're telling me they can win 8 or 9 games, but they don't know if they have a quarterback, then that kind of scares me. So that's why I'd go with the number 1 pick. Anyway, guys, you have been awesome for the last hour and 10 minutes. Jesus, you guys are great. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Make sure to subscribe to Boot Crew Media if you haven't already. And we're going to have more content coming soon. We got another preseason game on Saturday. We'll see how that one goes. Saints will probably have some updates on the quarterback situation, and we'll be here to cover it for you here on the Straight Up Saints podcast, the destination for the Who Dat Nation.